Julian visits unexpected after 5 years. John Lennon's embrace left Yoko in tears. New York City, October 9, 1980. John Lennon's 40th birthday. The Dakota apartment was filled with the smell of chocolate cake baking in the oven. Sean, now 5 years old, was helping Yoko decorate the living room with handmade birthday banners. John sat at the piano, playing quietly, watching his family prepare his celebration. For the first time in years, he felt something close to peace. The lost weekend was over. The separation from Yoko was behind them. The darkness had lifted. He was making music again. The double fantasy album would be released in a month. Everything was finally falling into place. At 2:47 p.m., the doorbell rang. John looked up from the piano, confused. "Are we expecting someone?" Yoko shook her head. "No. Everyone's coming tonight for the party. Not until 7. The doorbell rang again. More insistent this time. John walked to the door and looked through the peephole. His heart stopped. Standing in the hallway, carrying a small backpack and looking nervous as hell, was Julian. 17 years old, taller than John remembered. His hair longer, styled like John's had been in the early Beatles days. Same sharp eyes, same defiant chin. His son. The son he hadn't seen in 5 years. John's hand froze on the doorknob. 5 years since that therapy session in Los Angeles. 5 years since they'd reconnected. 5 years since John had promised to be better. And he had been, for a while. They'd talked on the phone. John had visited England twice. They'd written letters, built something fragile but real. But then life happened. The separation from Yoko. The lost weekend with May Pang. The drinking and the chaos, Sean's birth, the decision to be a house husband. And slowly, without meaning to, John had let Julian slip away again. The phone calls became less frequent. The letters stopped. The promises of visits never materialized. John had failed, again. And now Julian was here, on John's 40th birthday, after 5 years of silence. "John?" Yoko's voice came from behind him. "Who is it?" John opened the door. Father and son stood facing each other. Julian looked different. Not the confused, angry 11-year-old from Los Angeles. Not the vulnerable boy who'd asked if his father loved him. This was a young man, almost an adult. Someone who'd survived 5 more years without his father and learned to stand on his own. "Hi, Dad," Julian said quietly. "Happy birthday." John couldn't speak. His throat had closed completely. Julian shifted his weight nervously. "I know I should have called, should have warned you I was coming, but I was afraid if I did, you'd find some reason why this wasn't a good time." Still, John couldn't find words. "Can I come in?" Julian asked. "Or should I go?" That broke the spell. "No," John said quickly, his voice rough. "No, don't go. Come in, please." Julian stepped into the apartment, and John closed the door behind him. Yoko appeared from the living room. She stopped when she saw Julian. "Julian," she said, her voice neutral but not unkind. "This is unexpected. I'm sorry. I know it's John's birthday. I know you probably have plans. Julian looked at his father. "I just couldn't let another year go by without seeing you." Sean peeked out from behind his mother, curious about this stranger who looked so much like his father. Julian saw his half-brother for the first time, 5 years old, dark hair, Yoko's eyes but John's smile. The son who got the father Julian had always wanted. "Hi," Julian said to Sean. "I'm Julian, your brother." Sean looked up at Yoko. "I have a brother?" The question hung in the air, heavy with implication. John hadn't told Sean about Julian. In 5 years of being a devoted house husband, of baking bread and changing diapers and being present for every moment of Sean's life, John had somehow erased his first son from the narrative. Julian saw the realization on his father's face, saw the guilt, the shame. "You didn't tell him about me," Julian said. It wasn't a question. John's silence was answer enough. Julian nodded slowly. Like this confirmed something he'd suspected. "Right, of course, why would you?" Julian, John started. It's fine. I'm used to it. Being the son you forget about. That's not fair, isn't it? Julian's voice was rising now. 5 years, Dad. 5 years since Los Angeles. 5 years since you promised you'd be better. 5 years of waiting for phone calls that never came. Letters that stopped. Visits that got canceled. Yoko quietly took Sean's hand. Come on, sweetheart. Let's finish the decorations in your room. But I want to meet my brother. Later. Give them some privacy. She led Sean away, leaving father and son alone in the foyer. John and Julian stood facing each other. 5 years of hurt and abandonment and broken promises between them. Why are you here? John asked finally. Julian's laugh was bitter. That's your first question? Not, how have you been, or I'm sorry, or any of the things a normal father would say? I'm not a normal father. No, you're really not. They were silent for a moment. Then Julian said, I'm here because it's your 40th birthday. Because you're exactly twice my age now. And because I realized that if I didn't come today, I'd probably never see you again. That's not true, isn't it? When was the last time you called me, Dad? When was the last time you even thought about me? John couldn't answer, because Julian was right. In his quest to be the perfect father to Sean, John had abandoned Julian. Again, completely. I came to tell you something, Julian said. Something I should have said 5 years ago in that therapy office. What? Julian took a breath. I don't need you anymore. The words landed like a physical blow. I spent my whole childhood waiting for you to show up, waiting for you to be the father I needed. And for a few years after Los Angeles, I thought maybe you would be. Maybe you'd changed. Julian's eyes were wet, but his voice was steady. But you haven't changed. You've just found a new son to obsess over, a new chance to get it right. And I'm happy for Sean. I really am. He deserves a present father. Julian, I'm not finished, Julian interrupted. I came here to tell you that I forgive you for everything, for leaving, for forgetting, for choosing your new family over me. I forgive you because holding on to this anger is destroying me. It's making me bitter and hard and incapable of trust. He wiped his eyes. But forgiving you doesn't mean I need you anymore. It means I'm free from needing you, free from waiting for you to be something you're not capable of being. John felt tears streaming down his own face now. So happy birthday, Dad. I hope you have a great 40th. I hope you're a better father to Sean than you were to me. And I hope someday you look back on this moment and realize what you lost. Julian turned to leave. And that's when John did something that surprised both of them. He grabbed Julian's arm. Wait, please, don't go. Julian turned back, and what he saw on his father's face made him pause. John Lennon was breaking down completely. Not crying, not just upset. Breaking. Actually breaking. Right there in the foyer. You're right, John said through his tears. About everything. I failed you. Again. I got a second chance with Sean, and I threw you away to focus on getting it right this time. His whole body was shaking. But you're wrong about one thing. I do need you. I need you more than you can possibly understand. Dad, please, just let me say this. John's voice was raw. Every day I look at Sean and I see you. I see the little boy I left behind, and I hate myself for it. I hate myself for being the kind of father my father was, for repeating the cycle I swore I'd break. He was sobbing now, holding on to Julian's arm, like it was the only thing keeping him upright. I don't know how to be a father to both of you. I don't know how to love you both without feeling like I'm betraying one of you. So I chose Sean because he was here, because starting over seemed easier than facing what I'd done to you. John sank to his knees, still holding Julian's arm. But it's not easier. It's killing me. Every birthday of yours I miss, every milestone, every moment I'm not there. It's killing me. Julian stared down at his father, this legend, this icon, on his knees in tears, and something in Julian's heart cracked open. Julian stood frozen, watching his father fall apart on the marble floor of the Dakota. This wasn't the John Lennon the world knew, not the sharp-tongued rebel, not the confident artist, not the peace activist. This was just John, broken, human, devastated. "Get up," Julian said quietly. "I can't." "Get up, Dad. People don't kneel. Not for forgiveness. Not for anything." John looked up at his son with red, swollen eyes. Julian extended his hand. After a moment, John took it, and Julian pulled his father to his feet. They stood facing each other, hands still clasped. "I didn't come here for this," Julian said. "I came to say goodbye, to close this chapter, to move on with my life without you in it. I know, but I can't do that if you're going to do whatever this is." Julian gestured at his father's tear-stained face. "I can't walk away from someone who's breaking down." "You should. I deserve it." "Probably, but that's not who I am. Mum raised me better than that." At the mention of Cynthia, John flinched. "How is she, your mom?" "She's good. Married again. Happy, I think. She sends her regards." "Does she hate me?" Julian considered this. "No, she pities you. Says you're incapable of sustainable happiness, that you sabotage everything good in your life because you don't think you deserve it." She's not wrong. They were still holding hands, neither of them quite ready to let go. Finally, Julian said, "Come on, let's sit down, talk properly, like adults." They moved to the living room, the white room where John had spent 5 years being a house husband, where he'd written songs for Sean and baked bread and pretended his past didn't exist. Julian sat on the pristine white couch. John sat across from him, still wiping his eyes. "Tell me about the last 5 years," John said. "Tell me everything I missed." "Why? So you can feel more guilty?" "No, so I can know you. The real you, not the version of you I've created in my head." Julian was quiet for a moment, deciding whether to open up or stay guarded. Finally, he spoke. "I finished school, got decent marks. Not brilliant, but decent. I'm taking a gap year now, trying to figure out what I want to do with my life." "And what do you want to do?" Julian hesitated. "Music, but I haven't told anyone yet, because everyone will say I'm only doing it because of you. Because I'm trying to live up to the Lennon name." "Are you?" "I don't know. Maybe. Or maybe I just genuinely love it. It's hard to tell when your father is John fucking Lennon." John winced at the bitterness in Julian's voice. "What kind of music?" "Not yours, nothing like the Beatles. More introspective, singer-songwriter stuff, quieter." "That sounds good. Better than what I was doing at your age." "Yeah, well, you were busy changing the world. I'm just trying to figure out who I am." They sat in silence for a moment. Then John asked the question he'd been avoiding. "Do you hate me?" Julian thought about this carefully. "Sometimes. When I'm alone and it's late, and I think about all the birthdays you missed, all the times I needed you and you weren't there. Yeah, sometimes I hate you. That's fair. But most of the time, I just feel sad. Sad that you're my father, but not really my dad. Sad that I have to see you in magazines and on TV instead of across a dinner table. Sad that your life moved on without me in it." John's throat closed up again. "I'm sad too," he whispered. "All the time. About you. About what I've done. About the father I'm not." "Then why didn't you call? Why didn't you visit? Why did you just disappear?" John stood up and walked to the window overlooking Central Park. "Because I'm a coward. Because facing you means facing my failures. And I'm very good at running from things that make me uncomfortable." He turned back to face Julian. "When Sean was born, I made a decision. I was going to be the perfect father to him. Present, attentive. Everything I wasn't for you. And in my twisted logic, that meant focusing only on him. Starting fresh, pretending my past mistakes didn't exist. So you erased me. Not intentionally, but effectively, yes. I told myself you were better off without me, that Cynthia was giving you a stable life, that my presence would only complicate things." "That's bullshit. I know, but it's the bullshit I told myself so I could sleep at night. Julian stood up too, walking over to where his father stood by the window. Look at me, Julian said. John turned. I'm 17 years old. In 1 year, I'll be an adult. And after that, I'll probably move on with my life, get married someday. Have kids, build a career. Julian's voice was steady but intense. This is your last chance, Dad. Your last chance to be part of my life in any meaningful way. After today, if you disappear again, I'm done. I won't chase you, won't wait for phone calls, won't hope for visits. I understand. Do you? Because I need you to really understand. I'm not 11 anymore. I'm not that hurt little boy who just wanted his daddy to love him. I'm almost a man, and I need to know, right now, today, whether you're willing to show up for me, really show up, not just promises, actual presence. The question hung heavy in the air. John looked at his son, this young man who'd somehow survived 17 years of having John Lennon as a father. And John made a choice. Hey, before we continue with this incredible story, I need to give you an important warning. Many subscribers have reported that YouTube has removed their subscriptions without notice. Just take a quick look at the red button below to make sure you're still subscribed to the channel. I don't want you to miss any of the exclusive content that's coming up. And while you're there, leave that powerful like that helps me a lot with the algorithm. Oh, and tell me in the comments, which city are you watching from? I love getting to know every amazing person who is part of this community. Your participation makes all the difference. Let's interact. John looked at Julian for a long moment. Then he did something that shocked both of them. He pulled Julian into a tight embrace. Not a brief hug, not a casual pat on the back. A real embrace. The kind that says everything words can't. Julian stiffened at first, surprised. Then slowly, hesitantly, ... starting right now. Today. You're staying for my birthday party. You're staying for the weekend. You're staying as long as you want. Dad. And after this weekend, we're making a plan. A real plan. Not vague promises, actual dates on a calendar. Visits, phone calls, real presents. Julian searched his father's face. You really mean it this time? Yes. And I know I've said that before. I know I've broken promises. But this time feels different. Why? Because I'm 40 today. 40 years old. And I've spent too much of those 40 years running from the things that matter most. From you. From my responsibility. From being a real father. John took Julian's hands. I can't give you back your childhood. Can't undo the damage. But I can give you the next however many years we have. If you'll let me. Julian wanted to believe him. God, he wanted to believe him so badly. But he'd been hurt too many times before. What about Sean? Julian asked. What about your perfect life here with your new family? Sean is my son. You're my son. Both of you. And I need to figure out how to be a father to both of you, not choose between you. That sounds nice in theory. No, John interrupted. Not theory. Practice. Starting today. Come on. He pulled Julian towards Sean's room, where Yoko was still helping Sean with decorations. John knocked on the door. Can we come in? Yoko opened it, looking wary. Sean, John said, kneeling down to his 5-year-old's level. I need to tell you something important. Sean put down the crayons he'd been using. Okay, Daddy. The young man out there is Julian. He's your brother, my son from before I met Mommy. And I've been a terrible father to him. Yoko's eyes widened. She wasn't expecting this level of honesty. Why were you terrible? Sean asked, with the blunt curiosity of children. Because I was scared and selfish, and I made choices that hurt him. But I'm going to try to be better now. Sean looked at Julian standing in the doorway. Are you nice? Despite everything, Julian smiled. I try to be. Do you like dinosaurs? Sure. Do you want to see my dinosaur collection? The innocence of the question, the simple acceptance in Sean's voice, made both John and Julian tear up. I'd love to, Julian said. Sean ran over and grabbed Julian's hand, pulling him into the bedroom to show off his toys. John and Yoko stood in the doorway, watching. You told him, Yoko said quietly. I should have told him years ago. Yes, you should have. John looked at his wife. Are you angry? No, I'm surprised and a little proud. This is growth, John. Real growth. They watched as Sean chattered excitedly to Julian about his various toy dinosaurs, completely oblivious to the complicated family dynamics at play. Julian listened patiently, asking questions, genuinely engaging with his 5-year-old half-brother. He's good with him, Yoko observed. He's good, period. Despite having me as a father. Yoko put her hand on John's arm. You have a chance to change that narrative. Don't waste it. That evening, John's birthday party proceeded as planned. Friends arrived, artists, musicians, photographers, the tight-knit group that had become John's New York family. But the guest of honor who surprised everyone was Julian. John introduced him simply. This is my son, Julian. He came all the way from England to celebrate with me. The emphasis on my son, people were surprised but kind. They asked Julian about himself, his life, his plans, treated him like family, not an obligation. And Julian slowly began to relax. Maybe this time would be different. Maybe his father had finally grown up. Around midnight, after most of the guests had left, John found Julian on the balcony overlooking Central Park. Not too overwhelming? John asked. A little, but good overwhelming. They stood in comfortable silence for a moment. Then Julian said, Thank you. For today. For introducing me as your son. For not hiding me. I'm sorry I ever made you feel hidden. Me too. John pulled out a small wrapped package from his pocket. I got you something. Was going to mail it for Christmas, but since you're here... Julian unwrapped it carefully. Inside was a simple leather journal and an expensive pen. For your songwriting, John explained. Every musician needs a place to capture ideas. Julian ran his hand over the leather. This is... Thank you. And there's something else. John pulled a folded piece of paper from his other pocket. Julian opened it. It was a calendar for the next 6 months with specific dates circled. November 15th. I'm coming to London. We'll spend 3 days together, just us. December, you're flying here for Christmas, spending 2 weeks. January, I'm taking you to Paris. I've always wanted to go, never had a reason. Now I do. Julian stared at the calendar, seeing his father's handwriting, marking out actual commitments, actual plans. And on, John continued. Every month, either I come to you or you come here. No more vague promises. No more, we should see each other soon. Actual dates. Actual presents. What if something comes up? What if you have to cancel? Then I reschedule immediately, same week if possible. But I don't just disappear. I don't just stop showing up. Julian folded the calendar carefully and put it in his pocket. Okay. Okay? Okay. I'll hold you to this. And if you break these promises, I won't. If you do, Julian continued firmly, I'm done. No more chances. No more waiting. I walk away and don't look back. That's fair. That's more than fair. They shook hands like men making a business deal, because in a way, that's what it was. A contract, a commitment, a promise with actual consequences. Julian woke up the next morning in the guest room of the Dakota. For a moment, he was disoriented. Then memory flooded back. His father's birthday, the breakdown, the promises. He got up and wandered toward the kitchen, following the smell of coffee. John was already up, making breakfast. Not fancy, just scrambled eggs and toast, but making it himself. Morning, John said. Sleep okay? Better than I expected. Coffee? Please. They sat at the kitchen table, this simple domestic scene feeling surreal to Julian. So, John said, what do you want to do today? We could go to the park, or the museum, or just hang out here. Whatever you want. Really? Whatever I want? That's what I said. Julian thought about it. I want to write music with you, just for an hour. Nothing serious, just, I want to see how you work. John's face lit up. Yeah? Really? If that's okay? It's more than okay. Finish your breakfast and we'll go to the music room. An hour later, they sat side by side at the white piano. John showed Julian some chord progressions he'd been working on. Julian shared a melody he'd been developing. They didn't write anything complete, didn't try to force it, just played around, throwing ideas back and forth, laughing when something didn't work, excited when something did. Yoko walked past the music room at one point and stopped. She stood in the doorway, watching father and son create together. When John noticed her, he smiled. She smiled back. This was what healing looked like. Messy, imperfect, but real. Sean wandered in eventually, crawling onto Julian's lap while he played. "Can I play too?" Sean asked. Julian lifted Sean's hands to the keys and showed him simple notes. John watched his two sons together and felt something break open in his chest. Not pain this time. Something else. Something that might have been hope. Later that afternoon, Julian said he needed to head back to his hotel. Hotel? John looked offended. "You're not staying here?" "I didn't want to assume. Julian, your family. You don't need a hotel. Your room is right here. Stay. Please, stay for the rest of the week at least." Julian looked uncertain. "What about Yoko? I don't want to intrude." "You're not intruding," Yoko said, appearing from the hallway. "John's right, your family. Stay as long as you want." Julian looked between them, searching for hidden resentment or obligation. He found none. "Okay," he said finally. "I'll stay. Thank you." That week changed everything. Julian got to know Sean properly, played with him, read him stories, became the big brother he'd never had the chance to be. He got to know Yoko too, not the villain the media portrayed, but a complicated, intelligent woman who genuinely loved John and was trying to help him be better. They had a conversation one evening while John was putting Sean to bed. "I know you probably hate me," Julian said. Yoko looked up from the book she was reading. "Why would I hate you?" "Because I'm a reminder of John's past, of his first family, of all the things he's trying to move on from." Yoko set down her book. "Julian, I don't hate you. I've never hated you. I've been protective of John, yes, because he's fragile in ways people don't understand. But that doesn't mean I want you excluded from his life." "Really?" "Really. John needs you, needs to make peace with his past, needs to prove to himself he can be a better father. You give him that chance. So I'm a redemption project? No. You're his son, and he loves you even when he doesn't know how to show it properly." Julian was quiet for a moment. "Do you think he'll keep his promises this time?" "I think he'll try. Whether he succeeds or not depends on both of you, on your willingness to give him chances and his willingness to show up for them." "That's very diplomatic." Yoko smiled. "I've learned not to make promises for John. He has to make them himself." On Julian's last day in New York, John took him to Central Park. Just the two of them. No Yoko, no Sean, just father and son. They walked through the autumn leaves, talking about music and life and everything in between. "Can I ask you something?" Julian said. "Anything. Do you regret it? Having me? Getting Mum pregnant? All of it?" John stopped walking. "No, never. You were never the mistake, Jules. I was. My choices, my immaturity, my inability to be what you needed." He looked at his son. "Having you was the best thing that ever happened to me. I just wasn't ready for it. Wasn't mature enough to handle the responsibility. And now? Now I'm 40 and running out of time to get it right. So I'm going to try. Really try." They continued walking. "I'm proud of you," John said suddenly. Julian stopped. "What?" "I'm proud of you. For surviving having me as a father. For being kind, despite all the reasons you have to be bitter. For giving me another chance when I don't deserve it." Julian felt his eyes sting. "I don't know what to say." "You don't have to say anything. I just needed you to know." They walked in silence for a while longer. When they got back to the Dakota, John's friend Bob Gruen was waiting with his camera. Mind if I take a photo? Bob asked. For posterity? John looked at Julian. Is that okay? Julian nodded. They stood together on the steps of the Dakota, John's arm around Julian's shoulders, both of them smiling. The photograph would become famous later. After John's death, evidence that in his final months, he'd been trying to make peace with his past. But in that moment, it was just a father and son. Together. Finally. 2 weeks after Julian returned to England, John called, not on the scheduled day. Earlier, just to check in. Jules, it's Dad. Just wanted to hear your voice. See how you're doing. It was a small thing, an unscheduled phone call, but it meant everything, because it showed John was thinking about Julian even when he didn't have to, even when there wasn't an obligation. They talked for an hour, about nothing important, about everything important. At the end, John said, November 15th, London. I've booked the flight. We're still on, yeah? Yeah, Julian said, smiling. We're still on. Over the next month, John called 3 more times, unscheduled, just to talk. He sent letters too, nothing profound, just updates about his life, questions about Julian's. The Double Fantasy album was released in November. John sent Julian an advance copy with a note. Track 3, that's for you and Sean. About being a father, about trying to do better. Julian listened to the song Beautiful Boy and cried. Because it was about Sean, yes, but it was also an apology to Julian, an acknowledgement of everything John had done wrong. November 15th came. Julian half expected a cancellation, a last-minute excuse, something. But at 2 p.m., John Lennon walked through arrivals at Heathrow Airport, wearing sunglasses and a leather jacket, looking for his son. Julian was waiting. When John saw him, his face broke into a genuine smile. They hugged right there in the airport, not caring about the photographers or the fans or anyone else. You came, Julian said. Of course I came. I promised, didn't I? They spent 3 days together in London. John met Cynthia for the first time in years. It was awkward, but civil. They talked about Julian, about the young man he'd become, about co-parenting better late than never. John visited Julian's flat, met his friends, acted like a normal dad, not a rock legend. They wrote music together, talked about Julian's future, made plans. On the last night, sitting in a pub in Liverpool, John said something Julian would never forget. I'm not going to be perfect, Jules. I'm probably going to cancel something or forget to call or disappoint you in some way. I know. But I want you to know that even when I fuck up, I'm trying. I'm not running anymore. I'm not hiding. I'm here. Imperfectly, but I'm here. Julian nodded. That's all I've ever wanted, for you to try. Then I'm going to keep trying, for the rest of my life, however long that is. They clinked their glasses together, a toast to second chances, to growth, to family. John flew back to New York on November 18th. He was in a good mood, happy, lighter than he'd been in years. He had 3 weeks until Julian came for Christmas. 3 weeks to continue building this new relationship. 3 weeks to prove he'd changed. He didn't know he only had 3 weeks left to live. December 8th, 1980. John Lennon spent the day doing interviews and a photo shoot with Annie Leibovitz for Rolling Stone. That evening, he and Yoko went to the recording studio to work on a song. Around 10:30 p.m., they returned to the Dakota. John was in a good mood, joking with the doorman, thinking about Julian's upcoming visit, excited about Christmas with both his sons. A man approached him, asked for an autograph. John signed it, smiled, and turned toward the Dakota entrance. 5 shots rang out. 4 hit John. He stumbled into the security office, saying, "I'm shot." Then he collapsed. By 11:15 p.m., John Lennon was dead. Yoko was at the hospital, in shock, making impossible phone calls. One of them was to Cynthia in England. "It's John," Yoko said, her voice hollow. "He's been shot. He's gone." Cynthia went numb. Oh God, Julian. Someone needs to tell Julian. before he hears it on the news. Cynthia hung up and ran to Julian's room. He was asleep, dreaming about Christmas in New York, about seeing his father in 2 weeks. "Julian," Cynthia shook him awake. "Julian, love, wake up." Julian opened his eyes, saw his mother's face, and knew immediately something was wrong. "What? What happened?" "It's your father. He's been shot in New York. He didn't make it." The words didn't make sense. "What?" "Your father's dead, love. I'm so sorry." Julian sat up. No, that's not. We're supposed to see each other in 2 weeks. He promised. He's coming here for Christmas." I know, love. "So he can't be dead. He can't be. We just started. We were just—" Then Julian broke completely. All the walls he'd built, all the protection, all the careful distance, gone. He sobbed in his mother's arms like he hadn't sobbed since he was 5 years old. "We were supposed to have more time," he kept saying. "We just gotten back. I can't." Cynthia held her son while he fell apart. The next morning, Yoko called. "Julian, it's Yoko." Julian's voice was hollow. "I know. Mom told me. I'm so sorry. I know you and John were just reconnecting. I know you were supposed to come for Christmas." "Yeah." There was a long pause. "There's going to be a memorial, not a funeral. John didn't want that, but a gathering for close friends and family. I'd like you to be there." "Okay." "And Julian, I found something in John's desk, a letter, addressed to you. I think he was going to give it to you at Christmas." Julian's breath caught. "A letter? I'll save it for you. Bring it when you come." Julian flew to New York 2 days later. The city was in mourning. Vigils everywhere. Fans gathered outside the Dakota. Flowers and candles and photographs. Inside the apartment, a small group gathered. Yoko, Sean, a handful of close friends, and Julian. Yoko gave him the letter in private. "Take your time," she said. "Read it alone if you want." Julian went to the guest room, his room now somehow, and opened the envelope. His father's handwriting, his father's words, written days before he died. Julian sat on the bed in the Dakota guest room and began to read. "Dear Jules, I'm writing this on December 1st, 2 weeks until you come for Christmas. I'm so excited, I can barely sleep. I know that sounds stupid. A 40-year-old man excited about Christmas like a kid. But it's true, because this will be our first Christmas together. Really together. As father and son, I've been thinking a lot about the last 2 months, since your unexpected visit on my birthday, about how close I came to losing you completely, about how much time we've already wasted. And I keep coming back to one thought. I'm the luckiest man alive. Not because of the fame or the music or any of that, but because you gave me another chance. Because when you showed up at my door, you didn't bring anger or resentment or demands. You brought yourself, honestly, openly, and you gave me the opportunity to try again." Julian's hands were shaking as he read. "I know I've failed you more times than I've succeeded. I know 2 months of phone calls and 1 visit to London doesn't erase 17 years of absence. But I want you to know that this time is different. I feel different. For the first time in my life, I understand what it means to be a father. Not just to Sean, but to you, to both of you. It means showing up, even when it's hard, even when it's inconvenient, even when it's scary. It means choosing love over fear. And Jules, I choose you. I choose us. I choose being your father, however imperfectly." Julian was crying now, tears falling onto the paper. "When you come for Christmas, I want to tell you something important, face to face. But I'm writing it down now, just in case. I'm 40. I think about mortality more than I used to. Stupid, I know, but indulge me. If something happens to me, God forbid, but if, I want you to know these things. 1. You are my son, not my first mistake, not my previous life. My son, and I love you. 2. Every day I didn't call, every visit I canceled, Every way I failed you, it haunted me. You were never forgotten, never unimportant. I was just too scared to face what I'd done. 3. These last 2 months have been some of the happiest of my life, not because of the album, or the comeback, or any of that. Because of you. Because I finally got to know the amazing person you've become, despite having me as a father. 4. You're going to be okay. Better than okay. You're kind and talented and strong in ways I never was. You don't need me to be successful or happy. But I hope I can be part of your life anyway. 5. I'm proud of you. So incredibly proud. Not because you're becoming a musician, though I'm excited about that, but because you're becoming a good man, a better man than I ever was. The letter continued for 2 more pages. John writing about his plans for Julian's Christmas visit, about wanting to take both his sons to see the Rockettes, about teaching Julian more guitar, about having serious conversations about Julian's music career, about building a future together. The letter ended with, "I can't give you back the past, Jules, but I can give you the future. All of it. Every day I have left. I love you, son. See you in 2 weeks. Dad P." I've decided I prefer Dad to John. Feels more real, more like we're actually family. Julian folded the letter carefully and held it to his chest. His father was gone. They'd only had 2 months of real relationship. 2 months of phone calls and letters, and 1 visit. It wasn't enough. It would never be enough. But it was something. It was proof that John had tried, had changed, had loved him. Julian sat in that room for over an hour, holding the letter, crying, grieving not just for the father he'd lost, but for all the years they'd wasted before finding each other again. Finally, there was a knock on the door. "Julian?" Yoko's voice. "May I come in?" "Yeah." Yoko entered and sat beside him on the bed. She didn't say anything, just sat there in shared grief. "He was trying," Julian said finally. "He was really trying this time." "I know. He talked about you constantly these last 2 months. He was so happy you'd given him another chance. I should have done it sooner. Should have forgiven him years ago. We could have had more time." "No," Yoko interrupted gently. "You gave him what you could when you could. That's all anyone can do. The fact that you reconnected at all is a gift." Julian looked at her. "Do you think he died happy, knowing we'd made peace?" Yoko thought about this. "Yes, I think in his last moments, John Lennon was happy. He had his music back. He had his family. He had made peace with his past. What more could anyone want?" They sat in silence for a while longer. Then Yoko said, "There's a memorial service tomorrow. Just close friends. I'd like you to speak. If you're comfortable, say something about your father. I don't know if I can. Think about it. No pressure." The next day, a small group gathered in the White Room at the Dakota. The room where John had spent 5 years being a house husband. The room where he'd played piano with Sean. The room where 2 months ago he'd broken down and begged Julian's forgiveness. People shared stories. Bob Gruen talked about John's humor, Elliot Mintz about his generosity, others about his talent, his activism, his complexity. Then Julian stood up. His voice shook, but he spoke clearly. "My father and I had a complicated relationship. That's the kind way to say it. The honest way is that he abandoned me for most of my life, and I spent 17 years being angry about it." People shifted uncomfortably. But 2 months ago, on his 40th birthday, I showed up at this apartment. I came to say goodbye, to tell him I was done waiting for him to be the father I needed. Julian pulled out the calendar John had given him that night. "Instead, my father gave me this: dates, actual commitments, proof that he was going to show up." He looked at the small gathering, and he did. He called when he said he would, visited when he said he would, kept every promise on this calendar. Julian's voice broke. "We only had 2 months, but they were the best 2 months of my relationship with my father. Because for the first time, he wasn't John Lennon. He was just Dad. My dad. Imperfect, but trying. He wiped his eyes. This letter he wrote me, Julian held it up, was supposed to be a Christmas surprise, but it became his last words to me instead. And the last thing he wrote was, "I love you, son. See you in 2 weeks." Julian's voice was barely a whisper now. We didn't get those 2 weeks. We didn't get Christmas. We didn't get the future he promised. But we got something. We got reconnection. We got honesty. We got love, however brief. He looked at Sean, sitting on Yoko's lap, too young to understand what he'd lost. "Sean, you're too little to remember this, but your dad loved you more than anything. And in his last months, he was trying to love me too. Trying to be a better father. Trying to break the cycles that damaged him." Julian's voice grew stronger, and he succeeded. Maybe not perfectly, maybe not for long enough, but he succeeded. He showed me that people can change, that it's never too late to try, that love is always worth fighting for, even when it's complicated. He folded the letter carefully. So here's what I want everyone to remember about John Lennon. Not just the music, or the activism, or the fame, but this. In his last months, he chose his family, chose to be present, chose to show up. Julian looked around the room, and that's the legacy I'm going to carry forward. Not the bitterness, not the abandonment, but the love, the imperfect, late arriving, better late than never love. He sat down. The room was silent except for the sound of people crying. Yoko stood and embraced Julian. "Thank you," she whispered. "He would have been so proud of you." "I hope so," Julian said. "I really hope so." That night, after everyone left, Julian stood alone in the music room. He sat at the white piano where his father had composed his last songs, and he began to play, not his father's music, his own, a song about fathers and sons, about missed opportunities and second chances, about loving someone who wasn't perfect but tried anyway, about forgiving the dead and moving forward with the living. He called it "Too Late for Goodbyes," but really, it was about how it's never too late to say what needs to be said, never too late to forgive, never too late to love. Julian had gotten 2 months with his father, 2 months of phone calls and letters, and 1 perfect visit. It wasn't enough, but it was everything, because in those 2 months, John Lennon had finally showed up, had finally been the father Julian needed. And when that unexpected doorbell rang on John's 40th birthday, when Julian appeared after 5 years of silence, when John chose to embrace his son instead of his pride, everything changed. Not perfectly, not completely, but enough. Enough to matter, enough to heal, enough to prove that even the most damaged relationships can be repaired if both people are willing to try. John Lennon died on December 8, 1980, but in his last 2 months, he finally lived as the father. And that embrace, that desperate, healing, transformative embrace when Julian first arrived, left Yoko in tears, because she understood what it meant. It meant John had finally stopped running, had finally chosen to face his past, had finally become the man he'd been trying to be all along. And sometimes, that's the most we can ask for. Not perfection, just presence. Not a lifetime, just whatever time we're given. Not easy love, just honest love. 2 months, that's all they got. In the end, the last day here, but it was enough. If this story of unexpected reconciliation, last chances, and the power of showing up moved you, make sure to subscribe and hit that like button. Share this with someone who needs to hear that it's never too late to repair what's broken, never too late to say I'm sorry, never too late to choose love over pride. Have you ever reconnected with someone after years apart? Let us know in the comments. And don't forget to ring that notification bell for more Untold.